The shooting comes after several similar incidents in recent months involving police officers. Well, to discuss the mental health concerns facing police officers and what is being done to protect the intimate partners of these officers, we are joined in our Cape Town studios by researcher at the Social Justice Coalition, Khadija Bawa. Khadija, good morning, and thank you very much for your time. It looks like it's a very tough one because police themselves are under a lot of pressure, as we know. In South Africa, unfortunately and tragically, we have a violent history and like a very toxic masculinity, as you've said, in terms of how the policing is done. I mean, can this be resolved? I mean, can we find ways of ensuring that the loved ones are protected?
So in my opinion piece, thank you for having me first of all, but in my opinion piece, I actually cite a few ways that we can mitigate this crisis, because it is indeed a state of crisis because it's happening so frequently. And one of the things that I do cite is this, the focus that police stations and precincts should have on mental health. So even if mental health or trauma counselors are available, there is a stigma and a culture of mental health in South Africa that needs to be tackled within the precinct. So that is definitely one of the bigger concerns regarding this, the frequency of these incidents of police officers going home, and or even in as we see with the Houtbay case, committing murder and then turning the guns on themselves. In the work that the Social Justice Coalition is doing is that we have a campaign to call for more resources to be put in areas and in precincts where the murder rates are higher. So we think it's really, really important that where murder rates are higher, that there's a correlation with trauma and violence that police officers face when they are under-resourced in their precincts. So one of the ways to mitigate this is areas in Black Townships in the Western Cape and Cape Flats in the Western Cape is to make sure that precincts with higher murder rates have more police resources so that they do get the time and the assistance they need to work through all the violence and the trauma that they might face. And
also, how, as you've said, how they manage the situation where if they become aware that an officer is under pressure, he or she should not be allowed to take a firearm home.
Yeah. So there are provisions. Section 98 of the Firearms Control Act does stipulate that police officers should check in their firearms once they're off duty. They should leave it at the police station and not be able to take it home. But this is by far the exception as opposed to the rule. The rule is often that police officers are taking their firearms home, and this poses very imminent risk to their intimate partners, so whether their mothers, their wives, their girlfriends, because firearms are used to intimidate, harass and coerce women in domestic situations.
Now, from what you know as a Social Justice Coalition, are there currently efforts to support officers themselves enough? Because, I mean, as we said, and as you've said in your opinion piece, many of them are exposed to a lot of violence. Are they getting the necessary support anyway currently?
So the Social Justice Coalition really does focus on our police resourcing campaign. So that is a big issue for us. And we feel that police officers who are overworked in these precincts aren't getting the time, the help, and the resources because they are so overworked. But additionally, we feel that, that there is the stigma around mental health, like I've said before. And so SAPS really needs to dig deep in how they will address the stigma of mental health, specifically in the police services, given that there is this culture of toxic masculinity that I do speak about in my piece, where any emotional expression is seen as weakness, that there is this call to not show emotion, to display discipline, to follow authority, to follow rules, to follow your superiors. And so displaying emotions and even trauma in the South African context, and especially in the police services, is not something that is valued or even taken as seriously as we should be taking it.
Okay, Khadija, thank you very much for sharing some of your views with us this morning. That's Khadija Bawa, a Social Justice Coalition. She's written an opinion piece about this challenge that we are facing, whereby police end up, officers take guns home, which they're not supposed to do when they're off duty, and they end up, when there's pressure at home, as we've seen recently in Houtbay, shooting their loved ones.